Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in. Look at what I found. So, wow. Whew. I've been talking about this and referencing this for at least a couple years on different people's channels, on my own channel. Shout out to Accountable Commentary. He I guess was sent this or found this, and he did some commentary on. For those of you that want to know what Mr. Z is referencing, links are in the description box. Links are in the description box. But what I am referencing is a clip from the, I want to say 1970, or at least maybe the early 70s, of a group of black women speaking. This is recorded in black and white. A group of black women speaking about the Moynihan report and what they think of the Moynihan report, right? And I recall watching this uh, on BGS's channel years ago. Come to find out, that was 7 years ago. So yes, BGS, Mr. Z has been listening to you from the beginning, right? So yes, right. And I recall playing this to myself a couple of times back then, but I couldn't find it, and I kept on referencing it, and I would look it up or try to look it up occasionally, but I always only found like little 1 or 2 minute clips, and there's certain parts that you really couldn't understand. You had to have had the entire, at least what seems to be 10 or so minutes, um to really put in context the things that would I would reference. So shout out to Accountable Commentary. He has a good chunk of it. I typed it in again this time using the same title that Accountable Commentary used. I still couldn't find exactly what I was looking for, and I think I modified one word, and boom, the coverage that BGS put up 7 or so years ago, and I was like, that's the one. And I was like, I knew it. I kept on saying it. Toya, you're killing me right now. You're killing me. Hysterical. But yeah, I was like, I knew it, because I was like, did they delete it? And even when I type it in, um, I can't find the whole thing off outside of BGS's channel. So I will be downloading it after this commentary. Um, yeah. So the reason why I'm covering this is to show what some 50 plus years of a certain mindset gets us, right? Now, let's be very clear. Although we may disagree with the framing, and I like the new title, Toya, and although we, there are parts of this, let me use a leftist word, that are problematic, understand, at least from what we're hearing here, most of those women were not necessarily raving anti-black misandrous. That doesn't mean they weren't matriarchs, but this is the type of, like, when we speak about the small hats and their matriarchy, at least from what we can hear from these women. Now, do we know how they treat the men and the boys in their real life, at least back then? No. But at least from what we can hear from these women, they understood at least the delicate dance between men and women, particularly in the black community. And at least they understood that you have to incentivize men to perform a certain way, right? Not saying they weren't matriarchs, but they definitely aren't, or at least weren't, the Nazi style gynocrats we have nowadays, right? So I said most of the women in that conversation, didn't I? Oh, and BGS can recall, Mr. Z always brings this up. That one light skinned woman, oh boy. And at least on camera, it's black and white. So at least from what I'm seeing, she seems lighter skinned, at least from the what I can see, right? So I'm just gonna say that she's light skinned. Oh boy. So this lady spoke well. She enunciated her words well. She had good diction, right? And she was the prototype of that educated gynocrat that likes to move in the shadows, right? Z, what do you mean by that? At one point, this myth of the matriarchy, recall she said the myth of the matriarchy at one point, right? Then at another point, she speaks about, well, Moynihan is speaking as if matriarchy is inferior to patriarchy. And that's the issue right there. That was her. So she's saying the myth of matriarchy. She knows better. Remember, we're in 1970, right? She knows better than to say, yeah, we run it and we better, and these men better bow down. That's not what she knows. She can't frame it like that. Remember, this is not 2025, 2024, 2023. This is not then, or this is not now. This is 50 plus years ago. So she says out of one side of her mouth, the myth, right? Moynihan is forwarding a myth of the matriarchy. And then later on, maybe a sentence or two later, she says, as if matriarchy is inferior to patriarchy. Oh boy. And what does she really mean? Fast forward 50 years later, you know what she really means? Yeah, the black community is a matriarchy, and 50 years later, huh? Vince is hysterical. Vince is the matriarchs used to move like the mafia, La Cosa Nostra, right? I wonder if this lady was still alive, I wonder how she would sound now. Hmm? I wonder how she would sound now. Would she still be on this? Well, the matriarchy is not inferior to the patriarchy. 50 years later. See, her issue was Moynihan is attempting to impose white patriarchal ideals on the right, white patriarchal ideals, and we don't need that, right? We don't need the likes of him, this white man, to try to tell us how we should run the black community. There is another black woman that was part of the panel. She had like this head wrap thing going on, and she gave you black hipster vibes, right? Or the hipster is a newer term, black hippie vibes a bit. And she reminds you of your same, septum ring piercing. That sister would have definitely been with a white man nowadays if it was present day. She gave you the same vibe of the septum ring piercing sisters that are anti-patriarchy, anti-systems of oppression, anti-systems of hierarchy. And we have to redefine, and she literally said redefine. We have to redefine things and yawn. 50 years later, ma'am, your type still exists. Many of them tuck themselves under the first white man worth a damn. Sometimes not even worth a damn. Say it a bit better, Z. Most of the times not worth a damn. All of this redefining words, redefining terms, that lady sounded postmodern 50 plus years ago. Right? Exactly. And Demetrius says real Keating sixth and or AKA get her Jade vibes. She really did give those vibes. She really did give those vibes. So I love these pieces. Oh, and I found the other piece that me and BGS and many of us reference all the time, where the sister is like speaking to the brother, and she's like, "We're gonna get if we could get right, and you're gonna have to take the power from us." See, um, and this is something I forwarded. I think I've said this on Green Gorilla's channel before. Either Green Gorilla, maybe was it Dr. T. Hassan Johnson? I can't recall, but I've said this before, which is, you know, when you have the was it 2020 special or something like that, or Dateline special from what that was the early 80s or something, mid 80s, where all the sisters are talking about, except for one, speaking about they would rather be mothers than wives, and they don't want to have to take care of a husband and a child, and they're very blatant with it. Right now, you still have clips where women of present day say that black women, but I would argue black women back then that were about that life were way more apt to say it like that without necessarily framing black men as incapable, inept, and the reason why I would rather be a mother than a wife is because of how black men are lacking. Women back then were far more likely to be honest about that because I think they didn't fully appreciate how much the rest of the society was still very patriarchal, white people, very Christian based and structured. So they would be honest about, yeah, I just don't want to be with a black man. I don't want to be with a man. I don't want to have rules or regulations or have to consider what another person, a man, a black man, thinks or feels. So you have this woman on this panel speaking about, the matriarchy isn't inferior to the patriarchy. Far honest, right? Nowadays, and she, remember, she's still kind of obscuring what she really means by saying, this myth of matriarchy, but it's very clear what this lady's on. You have the other clip where the sister says, "We're gonna get if we could get." And essentially, you're gonna have to pull the power from black women's hands. Dear black men, you're gonna have to pull the power out of black women's hands. So you have a sister saying that very blatantly. Then you have the group of sisters very blatantly saying, "We don't want to be married." Right? So this doesn't work for black women. Black women realize this somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. This is where we get the reason why we're moving the way we're moving is because y'all haven't built a patriarchy worth a damn. Y'all haven't built Wakanda, right? Y'all aren't educated enough. Y'all are not on our level. The women in that 1970s clip aren't necessarily saying that. They're not. Their granddaughters will be, though. Their granddaughters, who we know now, are saying that. Right? Their granddaughters are saying that. And y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Listen to how this panel of women spoke back then, even as much as we disagree with them. You had two women that were really pushing this, what we would see now as standard. The other women, as much as we may not agree with the framing, maybe even one of them was a bust down for one of them white dudes back in the day. But if you listen to how they're speaking, particularly about black men, you don't have the same vitriol. There's not this angst, right? The angst is coming from the lighter skinned black woman that's really articulate. And even the hipster sister, she don't really got the angst. She just off in La La Land. You fast forward to any panel with black women now, especially them highly educated ones. Oh boy. Listen to how black women sounded back then. And it was still a matriarchy back then. But listen to how they sound in 1970 and then listen to how they sound now. When you put Bowser in a room with Keating Sixth, right? With Ole, huh? You put them in a room with Amanda Seals and Ebony K. Williams, huh? how do you think that conversation would go? Listen to how those women were speaking, which is what is fascinating is that the darker skinned sisters, the heavier sisters, seem to be far more understanding. Z, did you really just say that? It was the lighter skinned women that were on some, yeah, nope, 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 F them black men. Now, you fast forward to the 21st century, 2023, 2024, and all black women sound like this. No, I'm playing, I'm joking. Most, vast majority, almost all. Uh oh. Huh. You know, these are the women, talking about the women from the 1970s. These are the women that black women, contemporary black women of today, couldn't get the word out, couldn't get the word out. These are the women they say they don't want to be anything like. These are their grandmothers. For some of us millennials and some of us Gen Z, these were your grandmothers, by the way. These were your grandmothers. Depending, maybe, depending on how old you are, maybe even your great grandmother. These are the women that your sisters and your girl cousins in them are saying they don't want to be nothing like. Huh? You know, I think the sister with the braids represented as well as could be expected, right? Not saying she's not a matriarch herself, but you juxtapose her to the lighter skinned woman, and you can see whose ideology truly won out. And all it took, it wasn't even a whole half century, to be honest with you. I was gonna say half century. It didn't even take that long. And the lighter skinned black woman's ideology won out. And the black community looks like what right now? Uh-oh. Huh? Yeah, this is the black community. So once again, for those of you that did not click the links in the description box, we are reviewing a clip or two um videos, one of accountable commentary reviewing what black women thought in, I want to say it was 1970, but maybe the early 70s, of the Moynihan report, right? Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And this is a group of black women speaking about it. So I've been referencing this clip for the longest, for years. I just could not find it on YouTube. And somehow accountable commentary found it, right? And I looked it up and I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. I finally switched a couple of words around and I found it on BGS's channel from 7 years ago. Shout out to BGS. Um, and so, like I said earlier, I'm going to save it once we end this stream. Um, yes, because it is important, and this is a good clip, I would argue, to keep archived so that you can see the progression of black women over the past half century. Listen to how these women speak. Listen to the ideas that they forward. And Mr. Z is going to get into one very contentious idea about walking 10 paces behind your man. Oh boy. Now that one statement split the room. That one statement split the room. Huh? Which you found were, funny enough, the darker skinned black women, A couple of the heavier set black women were like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Even in a let me paraphrase this for y'all. Even if it's only for his ego and his pride. Oh boy, you imagine? You imagine a black woman nowadays saying, "Yeah, I'll do that, even if it don't benefit me, even if it's only for his ego and his pride." You imagine a darker skin and a heavier set darker skinned black woman saying, "Yeah, I'll do that for my man. I'll walk behind him, even if it's only for his ego and his pride." You imagine? Just for him to feel like a man, I'll do it. That statement right there, walk 10 paces behind your man, behind a black man, that split the room. But look at who had an issue with that statement. The lighter skinned, more articulate black woman. Damn, they're bugged on the heavier set dark black woman. She said what she said twice to speak over her and essentially say, is that really? Is that really about manhood? Do we have to lessen ourselves? Essentially, is what she was saying, right? Do we have to lessen ourselves, right? And now they're speaking about manhood versus peoplehood. Now we're speaking about manhood versus peoplehood because the lighter skinned black woman said, his manhood. What about our peoplehood? What? Now you see why it was so easy for Gloria Steinem and them to come in and help to co-op the Black Power movement. Because women like that lighter skinned black woman were they needed somewhere to be like, oh well, okay, civil rights movement, black men might actually get some power. Where can I go? Who can I sell out to? Huh? Gloria Steinem and them didn't have to put in too much work. Let's argue and let's say, okay, fine, it wasn't all black women. Black women were on the matriarchal kick, absolutely. But they weren't these raving anti-black man gynocrats. Not yet. And all you needed were women like that lighter skinned black woman to sell out to Gloria Steinem. And 50 years later, white women still marry white men. And they take their $1.85 and make it they take their 85 cents, couple it to the white man's dollar, and now you got $1.85. Meanwhile, black women are speaking about the gender pay gap. You sold out to the white women and white feminism because you listen to women like that woman right there, the lighter skinned black woman right there. Huh? She essentially said we shouldn't lessen ourselves for their manhood. What about our quote unquote peoplehood? 50 years later, and black women still earn less than everybody else in America, except for possibly Latina women. And that's a back and forth between black women and Latina women year by year on who earns less. Right? Huh. So one thing that also stood out to Z, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, is the talk of luxury. So you saw that accountable commentary in his commentary of this, it caught his attention also, right? Let's be very clear. This is something that we know. Shout out to Black Socrates, but he said this also. Accountable commentary also said this, right? BGS has spoken on this. Many of us, Green Gorilla, have spoken on this. Shout out to Dr. Green Gorilla. Pre-World War II, nobody had no damn money. Even white folks, no one had any money. Tone Talks has spoken about this ad nauseum. So when you say luxury, and it wasn't the lighter skinned black woman that said this, it was one of the heavier set, darker black women. And essentially, she was speaking about, you know, black women not being afforded certain luxuries. When you speak about luxury, and we know the masses of even white women didn't have this life, arguably still don't have that type of life. What you're speaking about, honestly, is being the help at well off white homes. And so, once again, what we have is what we always have. Shout out to Chrissy and Yanni and Paris and Shira Seven and Cynthia G and Lexus Exodus. I have a whole thing to say about Lexus Exodus, old raving lunatic ass. Um, what you see here is, once again, I can't even say once again because this was 1970, so nowadays would be once again. But what you see here is black women still comparing the masses of black men, the one big inward, to elite, well off, upwardly mobile white men. And of course, black women compare their life to the elite white women that they work for at the time, the white women with the luxuries, and speak about them not being afforded the luxuries of white women. No, you are working for, you are the help of elite white women, and you're looking longingly, even if you're not sexually attracted to that white man or white men in general. Okay, black women, I'll give you that. I don't know how true it is, but fine. You're looking longingly at that white man because of the life he can afford his wife. An elite white man. So black men writ large are being compared to, once again, elite white men. 50 years later, and they're still doing it. Right? And remember, that luxury comment came from one of the women that was kind of low key advocating for black men. Once again, we're not saying she wasn't a matriarch, but at least from what we can see here, raving lunatic gynocrat, not so much. Right? I found it fascinating that it was the lighter skinned black women, the slimmer women, that were the ones that were pushing what's wrong with matriarchy and we have to redefine things trope in the 70s, in the 1970s, not mid 80s, not late 90s, not 2015, not 2024. No, 1970s, early 70s on top of that. We have to redefine things. So there go the ugly side of post-structuralism right there. Right? There it goes right there. Right? And you see this, this this was another example of how a lot of this anti-black male stuff, it's being funded from the bottom, right? Excuse me, it's being funded from the top. This is astroturf. Because the lighter skinned black woman who you could tell was a bit educated, great enunciation, great diction, she was the one that was forwarding really that anti-black man matriarchal mindset. For those of you that missed it earlier, as I said before, out of one side of her mouth, earlier on, she's saying the Moynihan, right, is forwarding this myth of the matriarchy. While later on she says, well, matriarchy being inferior to patriarchy. And what she's really saying is, what's wrong with matriarchy? For those of you that have listened to Z on different people's channels, y'all have heard me reference that to BGS over and over again. Now y'all can see what I'm speaking about. For those of you that don't know, link is in the description box. Right? This tells you and this shows you, along with the clip that we saw from Army Osei Frimpong and from Dr. Green Gorilla of the white female congresswoman from what that was the 70s also, right? That shoehorned in white women into the civil rights movement as a way to undermine it, and it actually worked out for white women, right? Huh. This is why I say it's astroturf. So the way of them combating against what Moynihan presented here was to sell out to white women and hopefully what sell out in the sunset. Y'all know Mr. Z says this all the time. Sell out in the sunset into what same-sex loving covens so y'all could be munching on vagina. And how did that work exactly? Wait a minute. White women still married white men. Even Gloria Steinem was married. White women married white men, or is she still married? I don't recall. White women went out and marched and protested and wore their little quote unquote pussy hats and, you know, pink all over the place. And they did all of that. And then they still married the white man while black women, where you at, Yanni? Yanni over here mocking civil rights leaders of yesteryear while she's mocking Dr. Umar Johnson. And she's like, well, yeah, we sold that to the white women because what did y'all do? You're talking about black men from the 1960s and 70s that were being deleted by the US government. Rest in peace, Fred Hampton. Yanni said that we did all of this, black people, black ADOS men did all of this for access to white vagina. Fred Hampton, who didn't even get to be a father, Fred Hampton was what, deleted because of his love for white vagina, even though his lady was a black woman that was pregnant with his son. Oopsie. Huh? Malcolm did everything he did. Light skinned, tall, attractive black man did all of that for white vagina? But Betty Shabazz wasn't even a light. Okay, wait. Okay, it don't have to make sense, Z. Stop it. You're trying to make it make sense, Z. And Martin did all of that for white vagina that he could have possibly been piping. That's the accusations. Anyway. And Medgar Evers got what? Deleted for white vagina too? That's what you're saying? Huh. Yeah. So it's good to see what black women sounded like 50 plus years ago concerning the Moynihan report and much of their relationship to black men. And what you saw, right, was although they were matriarchs, the extreme hatred of black men, even if they did have it, they were really good at concealing it. You fast forward till today, and we have women like Keita Rose and Get Her Jade speaking. Those are the women that's speaking. Cynthia G and Shira 7. Bowser, Ebony K. Williams, and Amanda Seals. Those are the black women speaking now. Huh? Those are the black women that speak for black men now. If you want to go to, oh boy, the bar is in hell. The bar is in hell. If you want to speak to black women who are educated and may not have all the hatred in the world for black men, oh boy, the bar is in hell. That's when you're supposed to speak to Ole and Julesy. Jesus Christ. That's the bar. The women that don't completely hate black men, that are educated, that are well spoken, Julesy, right? And Ole. Oh boy. That is the and if you go anywhere south of that, well, you're in Auschwitz. Right? And Grinch says, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Grinch says, this is the hill that they die on. If your baby isn't interracial, chances are it will be doomed to the plantation. Look, man, it's Grinch, it is crazy watching this and comparing it to how black women speak now. And although these women are still matriarchs, in 1970 they were still matriarchs. They just knew that there was a dance. And you couldn't come out here and tell black men, F you, middle finger, we don't need you, and then expect for black men to still be there, their presence, their seed, right? Be there for the reach back. Shout out to Accountable Commentary. They knew you couldn't tell black men that they're the worst thing that ever happened on planet Earth, and every type of man is better than them, and they expect anything from these men. They knew better. So even if they were matriarchs, they knew, okay, there's a line I can't cross, because I don't know what the future may look like. You fast forward 50 plus years later, and you have women like Cynthia G talking about deleting unborn black male fetuses. Huh? You have women like Keita Rose saying you are the B in the situation if she earns more than you. Huh? Yeah. When you fast forward 50 plus years later, you have women like Yanni and women like B. Simone mocking black male civil rights leaders. You could never get away with that in the 1970s. You imagine being a black woman and recording yourself in 1970? Don't worry about the logistics, but recording yourself in 1970, speaking greasy about W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey, because that's the equivalent, right? You imagine? That's the equivalent of what B. Simone and Yanni did. And a couple of those dudes were known to have a white wife. Uh-oh. Huh? And you imagine saying, well, because he was with a white woman, so he was saying all he was saying for the white vagina, to have access to interracial sex. Right? So that shows you the de-evolution. All right. Hmm. 50 years later. 50 years later. And there's Chrissy talking about swirling. Crystal and Kerosene talking about swirling. Shira 7 turning men, black men, into nothing but a walking wallet, which means white men are better. Huh? Princella over here advocating for same sex loving relationships amongst black women. Cheryl says, can you imagine if they had cameras in the phone in the 1970s, how big those things would be? Look how big the phones were in the 80s. If it was the 70s, Jesus. Right? Thank you. St. Cyrano, Mr. Z is saying, and St. Cyr says, the way they portray Frederick Douglass and his marriage to a white woman is nuts. And wasn't Frederick Douglass with a black woman at first? Did he not have his kids with a black woman first? His children? Huh? And once again, Grinch, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Huh. So black women in the 21st century, how many of them know about this clip? Because I've been knowing about this clip well since I saw it on BGS's channel 7 years ago. Huh? When you see this clip, you see whose ideology won out and how devastating that's been for the black community writ large, including even black women, the masses of black women. This is why Mr. Z says black men lose a gender war, black women just lose the gender war harder. Meanwhile, a relative handful of black women get to be elevated off the backs of all the broken black men and women. While they try to get other black women to align with them on some sister girl, oh, we all black women. Huh? If y'all saw that lighter skinned black woman speak as if, no, we're all in this together. Meanwhile, she's telling you, F black men's manhood, what about our peoplehood? And the other black women are looking at her like, what? What are you talking about? So how do we go from, because even the hipster black woman that was there, excuse me, even she wasn't too far off the reservation. She was off the reservation, but she wasn't too far off the reservation. So how do we get a panel full of black women that even as much as we might disagree with them and disagree with the framing, still sound somewhat sensible, even though there's still envy of white women, really it's elite white women, even though they're still matriarchal, right? You can still be like, I can do something with that. I can work with that. I can move that over. How do we get a panel full of black women that you could do something with, and really, really only one extreme example? At least from what we could see, there might be other extreme women on that panel, but we can't. They didn't express it here. How do we go from how many women were there? 5, 6, one extreme example to that extreme example being the example now? Huh? That lighter skinned black woman is the example now. She's Ebony K. Williams. She's definitely Amanda Seals. Huh? That lighter skinned black woman is the example now. She's Bowser. Huh? So she went from fringe even during the time of matriarchy in the early 70s. She sounded fringe. She ain't fringe no more. Y'all don't think this was done by white folks? See, it's easy to call black men all type of conspiracy theorists when we speak about the gender dynamics between black men and black women and how it was weaponized against black people, namely black men. But of course, we sound like all type of conspiracy theorists until you watch this clip and you're like, wait a minute, this one woman went from being the extreme example to being the example, right? And Trail says all it takes is one bad apple to spoil the whole barrel. I'm saying, right? And Harambe ask, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Harambe ask, why do you still push black relationships so hard when you have all the information about how they really feel about you? You want to know why? First, one of my quotes, black people are inappropriately responding to a toxic environment, number one. Number two, that's my preference. Number three, I really don't think you can go anywhere until you fix home first. As effed up as home is, I think that for the most part, black men are going to still end up with black women. Passport bros, SYSBM, right? MGTOW, name it. I think for the most part, black men still end up with black women. For the most American black people, that's ADOS, and that's any one of us that are children or immigrants, grandchildren of immigrants, etc. If you are black and in these United States, for the most part, you're going to end up with another black person. For the most part. And in that case, you really don't have a choice in the matter. Right? I think there's a selfish reason and a selfless reason that I engage in this. The selfish reason is because, well, I'm black and I have the same jersey color as black women. And the selfless reason is I don't really think I can make certain moves as expressed by Jason Black last night, for those of you that caught his stream about white money, white corporate money, and how that comes about. I don't think we can do that as individuals, right? Your wealth is a product of your people. Well, how's that look for black people? In America specifically, but globally. What do black people make up? At least 1.5 billion people on planet Earth, give or take? Between the whole continent of Africa, black people in all the European countries, in Canada, in America, in the Caribbean, in Brazil, right? Give or take 1.5 billion people, and we have how many billionaires? White folks don't even constitute 10% of the population, and they have at least a good, what, thousand and something? There's about 3,000, at least reportedly. There's about 28, 26, 2,700 billionaires on planet Earth, most of them being white folks. And white people don't even constitute 10% of the world's population. Meanwhile, black folks are some 1.5 billion out of 8 billion. And we have what? Do we even break 20 billionaires on the earth, on the planet? At least reportedly. So once again, I don't think you have a choice but to work on black women. I don't think you really have a choice in the matter. as a group. Individual brothers, yes. Individual black men can be passport bros and SYSBM, right? And MGTOW, et cetera, et cetera. But as a group, absolutely not, right? Now, if you can find a way to have the children and produce the children without black women, oh, now we having a different conversation, and that is not that far away. Now we having a different conversation. But until then, yeah, huh? And Allspat says, director, I know you meant divester. Divester swirler crowd hates that fact too. Hence why they try to um bully sisters that aren't mindless, soulless zealots for YouTube folks. Don't you look at the sister alpha this. Look at the lighter skinned articulate black woman. Look how she spoke to the heavier black woman. And the heavier black woman was like, hey, whatever works. And for those of you that haven't watched the clip yet, I'm speaking about the lighter skinned black woman when she um oh, they're speaking about the Moynihan report, right? By the way, Daniel Patrick Moynihan report. Um this is 1970s, and it's a panel full of black women, and they're speaking about this. And there's a segment of this where the heavier set black woman pretty much says, "I'm okay with walking 10 paces behind my man, black man, if that pretty much makes him feel more like a man. If that's going to help his manhood, I'm okay with that." And the lighter skinned black woman essentially barks on her in a very articulate way and says, "Screw his manhood. What about your peoplehood?" And guess, and I don't know if y'all caught it. Her final response, the heavier set black woman, is whatever works. Essentially, she said whatever works, and she's like, "I'm okay with that." My question is, and I'm not even for necessarily saying walking 10 paces behind black men. Although, how did we get from that lighter skinned black woman being the extreme, even though all of those women in there are probably matriarchs? How did we get from that lighter skinned black woman being the extreme example of black women to being the example of black women? Right? That's the question. And Better You says there are artificial wombs in development. I Am Waffles also says those artificial wombs are around the corner, Mr. Z. Right? Huh. And Anubis says, can you make the argument that black feminism is the revenge of the house nanny and bedwench? You could say the bedwench, yes, maybe the house nanny, but if it's the revenge, it's only directed towards black men. Yes, they have rhetoric towards white women that's negative, but they still can't touch white women. That's much of black women's angst, and quite frankly, a lot of women of color's angst is that they still can't necessarily touch white women. They're still looking up longingly at what they see as white women's lifestyle, right? And so understand what's frightening about this. Y'all realize that we have a whole lot of like solidly middle, maybe upper middle class, some even rich South Asian women, black women, East Asian women, Latina women who are jealous of white women. Like that woman that Compassionate Callous has on his channel, that Asian woman off of that Man on the Street interview. She didn't look like she was a struggling Asian woman. And especially the way she was speaking, that was probably a solidly middle class, maybe even upper middle class Asian woman. And she still, at her class level, she still looked longingly at white boys and white men because of the way she wasn't treated by white boys when she was in high school. You listen to Aoki, right? Simmons, Russell Simmons' daughter. She was being bullied in here in all type of N-words in high school. She went to Harvard. and now she pretty much the bust down for some old crinkly crackly ass rich white dude, right? You look at Serena and Venus. You look at Candace Owens. You look at Ebony K. Williams, right? You look at what's the South Asian woman I bring up all the time? Um Mindy Kaling. Many of these women have stories of being bullied by white boys and they end up with white dudes when they become adults, right? So the bedwench talk, yeah, possibly. Actually, the bedwench talk, yes, or but the nanny talk. The problem is, at most, every once in a blue, one of these women of color will say something, you know, disparaging about white women. But for the most part, most of their angst is towards the men of their own cultures and races and ethnicities, right? And it is this longing for acceptance by white men in particular. Huh. So yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So I'm so glad that a Accountable Commentary found this. I've been speaking about this for the longest. I've referenced it so many times, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. And the fact that excuse me, Accountable Commentary found it, and whew, so like I said, I'm gonna download it. It's gonna be archived. Yeah, this is a great find. It puts into context a lot of the things that we speak about here and the difference between a matriarchy and a gynocracy. These black women were definitely matriarchal. But as I said before, they understood the push and pull, and that you couldn't go around calling black men bullet bags because of some online back and forth. You couldn't call black men bullet bags. They knew you couldn't call black men bullet bags. Just to be like, hey, I have to respond. And the bullet bags. No, you felt that way, huh? These women were going back and forth with this lighter skinned black woman who essentially said, what about your peoplehood? You saw black women, heavier set, darker skinned black women. The women you say black men will date and marry anything, right? The black women that you would say are undesirable, right? The quote unquote undesirable black women are still saying, yeah, I don't have a problem walking 10 paces behind my man if that's going to do something for his ego and his pride, right? Huh. And Trell says, I don't know, the moderator didn't seem to have that same restriction. Was the moderator Trell, was the moderator that the she looked like the oldest person there, and she had kind of had like a, is that a pixie cut? Right? Was that the moderator, you think? Oh, you're saying the lighter skinned black woman was the moderator. And Trell says she was like a founding NASIC member, hysterical. For those of you that don't know, NASIC, coined here on Mr. Z's channel by Trell and Mr. Z, is Negroes ain't ish industrial complex, and Negroes isn't the word, right? Better you, Sid, the one with the Beatles haircut. I thought she, yeah, I think she, okay. Okay, and Trail says I took it as the light skin. I don't I don't know because the one with the Beatles haircut, she did say a couple of things. She, I want to if I could find the whole conversation. That's gonna be a difficult one, right? Because I would love to put this in even greater context with the whole conversation, right? Yeah, yeah. You know, and it was the Beatles. See Michael Ross dying right now. Better you. That's funny because I, the second you said Beatles haircut, why don't you hold my hand? Just popped up in my head. I said Ringo. Oh man. So yeah, um, yeah. I internally laughed when you said that. That was funny. The ones with the Beatles haircut. But the one we should be really flaming, and the crazy part is the lighter skinned sister is not at least unattractive, and that's once again, man. This is what all that vetting stuff that black women. You gotta vet all men. Whatever. Yeah, no, black men, no, for real though. You gotta vet all women. Because you hear the way she speak. Once again, y'all give me a second. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. Reckless streams, reckless streams. Y'all already know, right? And damn, I lost my train of thought. Look at that. Mrs. Z was about to talk about the. Oh yeah, that lighter skinned black woman. Look, the lighter skinned black woman give me Ebony K. Williams vibes. Ebony K. Williams mixed with Amanda Seales vibes, right? She give me Ebony K. Williams mixed with Amanda Seales vibes. The way she speaks is more like Ebony K. Williams, but when she spoke about the matriarchy versus patriarchy, it was like a 1970s version of what Amanda Seales said on that Restoring Relationships podcast about why does he have to be the leader? Well, Amanda Seales, you're right. Men do not have to be the leader. Black men don't have to be the leader. And your relationship status right now is what now? Oh, okay. Dear women, let me give y'all a little Z, don't expose the secret. No, I'm gonna expose this one secret. Let me say this. Dear black women, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. The men you want, the men you desire, and they don't even have to be black men, they're going to be the leader. They may play it down, they might play coy, they might not use that type of language, they might sound like FD signifier, they might sound like foreign man in a foreign land, blowing smoke up your ass. They will run it or you'll be single. That's how that works. The men you desire. Right? Hmm. And Grinch says, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. And Grinch says, if you want your kids to live free off the plantation, you got to stop breeding with slaves. That's a good one, Grinch. I don't even got nothing to say to that. And then he put the shrugs. I don't even got nothing to say to that one right there. Right? Dr. Thunder, what's going on? Spam, man, what's up with you? Paul Wilson. Right? And better you said. I listened to about half of it on the way to work this morning, but I saw that haircut though. He said Beatles. He said Beatles haircut. Jesus, better you. That was good. I wouldn't have pulled that one out. I wouldn't have thought about that one. That was good. Right? Man. And Dr. Thunder says, to what Grinch says, unless they're your slave. Good point. Good point. Because that's exactly what's going on in them goddamn plantations. Uh-oh. Right? And that's that, you know, once again, the lighter skinned black woman, her enunciation, the way she speaks, the way she presents, you know, and this idea, it speaks to black women when they say, oh, black men are intimidated by educated black women. Like, no, a lot of y'all sound like this lady. Y'all present like this lady. And Ebony K. Williams spoke about this a little bit on Torre's channel when she spoke to Torre. Ebony K. Williams knows she's not really intimidating by us. Excuse me, we're not intimidated by her. We don't find her intimidating. We find her nauseating. We find her insufferable. Intimidating, not so much. I would love to talk to Ebony K. Williams about some pro-black stuff. I would love to talk to her about local, state, and definitely national politics. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm all the way with Anton about her being, office manager at somewhere or whatever. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Relationship? Nope. You could keep that. Right? You could keep that. Right? And Ninja Person puts up a link for the artificial wombs, and it says artificial womb facility is up in Germany. Black women will still well, black women, excuse me, I don't know why I said will still. Black women still don't realize they're in the end game. Look, they're not thinking that far. They're not consuming the same information as we are. They're not. For them, it's all about spiting black men because black men didn't build the Wakanda, and attempting to appeal to any man with some wealth to come and save them from their life, whether those women have money themselves or not. Another misconception of our society. She got her own money. What that mean? She has her own money. As if that stops women from still wanting a man with money. She's highly educated. And all these weirdo ways of saying she don't need your money, yes, but she wants it. Oh, she just wants someone equally yoked. This lady makes like $13 an hour. She wants a man that's equally yoked. She makes $250,000 a year. Either way. Right? So yeah, Ninja Person, they're not thinking that far. Clearly. Because if they were thinking that far, the lighter skinned black woman, not only would she have been shut down on that panel from the 1970s, her ideology wouldn't have been able to permeate the entire black community, black women, and her ideology wouldn't be the prevailing ideology. The way she speaks wouldn't be the prevailing way that not only your average black woman speaks, but definitely your black intelligentsia women speak. Bowser speaks like that. Ebony K. Williams speaks like that. Amanda Seales speaks like that. Y'all ever heard Gayle King speak? Gayle King speaks like that. Right? That lighter skinned black woman, the way she was speaking is the way you hear a lot of your black female intelligentsia speak. That's how they sound. Just like her. 50 years later. And once again, Grizz, thank you for that super chat. Thank you for that super chat. Right? And Trell says her name was Joan Harris. Z. Okay, her name is Joan Harris. I gotta look her up because I want to really see what we were dealing with and how her ideology became the prevailing ideology. At least for your black female intelligentsia. Right? And Detroit says Z, I sent you an email about black women dating in 2024. Brother, I covered it last night. If you're talking about that animated series from Lexus Exodus, I covered it last night. Or yesterday afternoon at least. Right? Huh. So you have 50 plus year difference, and we got to see how matriarchs sounded in the 70s versus gynocrats in the 21st century. Right? Especially with the sister with the braids, because she was hanging in there too. The sister with the braids was not saying she wasn't a full on matriarch herself, but once again, these are women that understand the dance between black men and black women, and they know that you have to give a little to get a little. Not that lighter skinned black women though. Their manhood. What about your peoplehood? Oh, yawn, huh? These women, even though the framing was a bit off, were speaking about the degradation of black men. The other women on the panel were speaking about the degradation of black men. And whether they realized it or not, they understood that what happens to black men is inextricably linked to black women and black women's outcome. So even if they were extremely selfish, what they're saying is because we're linked to black men, the degradation of black men has an effect on us. The lighter skinned black women said, to damn all that. To hell with all that. Right? Huh. So women like her are the ones who sold out the civil rights movement to white women. She sounded like she wanted to do it then, right? You can hear it in her then. She looking for a way out. She looking for, hey, look, man, right? She look, the black men, the civil rights movement, they might get some money and resources. What? Where can I go? Right? And Detroit says Lexus Exodus made I know what you mean, made at least 15 or 20 cartoons about black men. Lexus Exodus is gone, man. Lexus Exodus is gone. Let's assume that she's telling the truth. She earns over six figures and she's been earning over six figures for a little while now. What does that mean? Nothing. Let's say you are married to a non-black man. What does that mean? Fine. You are a black woman, baby mama who remarried to a non-black man and you earn over six figures. You're still a loser. Let's say you produce this content. You're the animator. That's some talent. Guess what? You're still a loser. You see that energy that you go at black men, calling black men nignogs? That shows passion, ma'am. That passion, that hatred of black men, that's loser behavior. You know what that also means, ma'am? You'll have hate sex with a really good looking black man. God damn, see, you cheat on that non black man with a black man. You could tell yourself you won't, you would. That nignog, see, when you speak, I hear it. I hear it when it builds up in you. That energy, that anger. Uh huh. That's passion, ma'am. That hatred, that's passion. Uh oh. That little animated series you made, Black Women Dating in 2024, All these negative stereotypes. Once again, like I said, Detroit. If you missed it yesterday, I kept on saying, "Where are the black men speed dating?" I thought that was one of black women's complaints. Okay, thank you, thank you. And Trell says, let's read this one first. Joan Harris is a journalist and media consultant who is also a classically trained actor, a graduate of Royal Academy of Dramatic Art London. Oh boy. And Trell also says, Z, the link has the description about the panelist. And I saw the link. Let me click that now before I get off. That way I'll have it in my archives. Y'all give Z 1 second. Give me a second, y'all. Let's make sure that that gets into. I'm gonna save that so that I can check that out later. See, oh, see, it has the whole. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, good stuff, Tro. Yep. See, be needing this. Yep, got it. All right, thank you, Tro. Keep that up in mind. Anubis said. Anubis said, the light-skinned black women have the blood of the slave masters. What, bro? You hear the way she's speaking? Manhood. What about your peoplehood? And the other black women are like, I don't know. Right? So going back to Lexus Exodus real quick to say this to Detroit. Yesterday, and I'm only gonna spend a couple minutes on this. Yesterday when I was speaking about that, I made sure to emphasize that black women are already complaining about black men not attending these different dating and matchmaking and speed dating events. Right? So if black women in real life are recording themselves saying, "Black men, why aren't you showing up?" And women in general, honestly, but black women specifically are saying, "Men, black men, why aren't you showing up to these matchmaking and speed dating events?" So Lexus Exodus, even the scenario she paints here, so she starts off wrong. Before we even get to all the negative stereotypes, she starts off wrong. Once again, Lexus Exodus, much of black women's complaint is that black men are not showing up to these matchmaking and speed dating events. So there's that. Right? So problem number one. Okay, fine. Number two, the swaggy brother that you had there with the dreads, he wouldn't be there. If he's swaggy and good looking like that, guess what? He has a girlfriend, or he has a girlfriend and a couple of side chicks, or he has a side. He wouldn't be at no goddamn matchmaking or speed dating event. All right. Next, the passport bro you had there with the bluish hair, aqua-ish hair, whatever the hell color, right? He wouldn't be there either. He's a passport bro. And especially after he said, "I don't even know, my boy invited me to this. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even date black women." He wouldn't be there to tell you he don't date black women. I promise you black women be making up these scenarios in their head. He wouldn't even be there to tell you he doesn't date black women. You know what drives y'all crazy, but y'all keep on pretending that that's not what's happening? Black men that don't date black women ignore black women. They don't call y'all ugly. They don't tell y'all, "Oh, I don't date black women." They ignore you. They stay the hell away. Ask me how I know. I have a couple of boys from high school who've been on Latinas since high school. They don't talk negatively about black women. They just don't date black women. This is a scenario y'all be making up in your mind. The heavy set nerdy brother that you said you portrayed him harkening back to what, the ninth grade? Have you ever heard of Yanni? She went back to 16 years old. Bowser, Kim Foster, she went back to being a teenager also. Oh, Stefko went back to what, the eighth grade or even 8 years old. I can't recall. That's what black women engage in. Lexus Exodus, right? That's craziness. It's St. Cyr says, I said St. Cyr. Sorry, St. Cyr. Give me a second. Detroit says 25 years, still in speed dating like a job interview. Bruh, you ain't seen nothing. Last night I finished listening to um what's it called? Reconstruct. I just mentioned the name of the channel, whatever that channel was that Amanda Seals was on a couple months ago, or whatever. Um, redefining relationships or reconstructing relationships, something like that. I watched them bring on this PhD, um, middle aged sister. Woo! And she's a demographer and a sociologist. Woo! That's scary. That is some scary stuff. Man, y'all ain't see, man. PhD telling black people and black women specifically how to be okay with being single, and she made sure to emphasize leave black women alone, let black women do what they want to do type thing. Miss Doctor, um, we are letting black women do what they want to do. That's why black women are throwing a goddamn fit. We are. I could critique you all I want. It's my mouth. But doing something, are we passing laws? No. That's much of black women's issue, is that people are becoming more and more indifferent to whatever situation they have going on, because we cannot wait for it, critique you in your behavior. You're the PhD, ma'am. You're the PhD in demography and sociology. Do you not know how this works? You know how this works. I'm not even trying to mock you. I'm being serious. You are the PhD in demography and sociology. Maybe if you had a conversation with Dr. Jennifer Lundquist, who's interestingly enough also a researcher and a PhD in demography and sociology, but problem is she's a white woman, so you probably don't want to hear from her. Y'all give Z 1 second. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Reckless streams, of course. Um, but yeah, madam, you are the PhD in demography and sociology. Dr. Jennifer Lundquist speaks about on her in her book, and Dr. Chantel Buggs, who's also once again PhD in sociology. Um, the way black daters are constantly rated down, and how much women of color, that includes black women, are first to respond to white men and then men of their respective races. Now, I would be fascinated if you didn't read that book, but I would love to know, how does black women being comfortable being single and people leaving black women alone to do what they want to do how they want to do it? I would love to know how you reconcile that with the book The Dating Divide, that shows that people in general are already doing that to black women, and that's much of black women's problem. Madam, have you ever considered that the issue that black women have is not that they don't actually want to be single? Like when they're younger, of course, they want to be out here in the streets, hot girl summer and whatnot. But have you ever considered the problem is that black women, that includes very educated black women, ma'am, very financially well endowed black women, $250,000 a year black women, such as yourself. Have you ever considered that much of their issue is that they actually want men to subsidize them while they practice negative liberty? Have you ever considered that? It's not that black women want to actually be single. They're definitely not comfortable being single. is that they want a man to pay for them to do whatever the hell they want to do anyway. And that's the issue that many black women are having. As FD Signifier told me, security and autonomy. Have fun trying to get that. Have you ever considered that's really black women's problem? Huh? And the issue that black women are having is that people are seeing that and they're like, yeah, men are seeing that, and men are like, see, the way my bank account is set up. Shout out to Kevin Hart for that joke. Yeah, see, the way my manhood is set up, I can't subsidize you while you give me the middle finger and tell me I can't say nothing. Yeah, nah, let's not do that. Y'all thought it was just a black man thing, and then y'all started trying to swirl and divest with that same mindset, and then white men said, if Tyrone's not going to accept that, what makes you think me, Brad? What makes you think I'm going to accept that? Right? See, if y'all would like to say the quiet part out loud, dear all you swirlers and divestors, but definitely you swirlers, be honest. Y'all tried to take that, subsidize me while I do whatever the hell I want to do to white men and Latino men, and they laughed in your face. So to the PhD that was on was it Reconstructing Relationships? Is that the name of the channel? I can't remember recall what the name of the channel is again. Right? But yeah. So finishing up on Lexus Exodus. Lexus Exodus is a she's gone, y'all. She's gone. So I'm assuming that she's telling the truth, taking her at face value. She earns 6 figures. She's married, or at least in a relationship with a non-black man. But yeah, another one of these kind of thrown off, financially doing well with black women who had one issue go wrong with and in her case, I think it's her baby daddy, her ex black man. So a Crystalline Karazin, just more extreme with the rhetoric, right? It's just Crystalline Karazin more extreme with the rhetoric. So yeah, yawn. And the lighter skinned black woman off of that conversation is how you get a Lexus Exodus 50 years later. That's how you get a Cynthia G 50 years later. Right? Of course. Of course. Thank you. And Trail says, regardless if Chubb, the chubby brother, Chubb rocks stuck since the 9th grade, the brother still grinded and made something of himself, but she downgraded a homeowner with a car, degree, and a trade. Those women don't hear none of that. I told you when she was even it, and it really is like when I say neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity, she was insulting Rachel Lindsay's ex-husband, the Rachel Lindsay, the black woman, and she's cute. Rachel Lindsay is a cute sister. Rachel Lindsay, the black woman from the first black bachelorette that married the white dude. She was even going in on the white dude, but she was like, "Oh, he makes $60,000 to $110,000 being a chiropractor in like Florida. Like, I made more than that." And she continued. I kind of zoned out for the rest of it because it made no sense. Like, this is really like a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity. And it leaves black women in general, but black women specifically, it completely destroys their dating choices and options. And that's what I say, they're not doing the social math. Wait a minute. So you're going to be a black woman earning 6 figures, and even the white men, you're going to talk. So, which is interesting because they find themselves in this weird position. They either date down when they date white, because there's this really weird, and shout out to whoever sent me that video from what's his name, Shishazed? I can't remember, but I watched it, and he was critiquing a black woman, African descent. I got to get into that in a minute. And she's not unattractive neither. Braids, sitting in the car. This is another one of those sisters. They earn money. They're educated, and they feel like they're lowering their standards when they don't get everything on that list. Now, this speaks to what we say about the difference in the way men see things and the way women see things. If men get 8 out of the 10 on the list, you can't tell us nothing. We won. We damn near won the lottery. If men get 7 out of 10 things on the list, we're good. We're content. Dudes is willing to go damn near 6 on the. Let's be honest. Dudes is be happy with 50-50. But 6 on the list, we're okay. You know what? It ain't all that, but okay, fine. 7 on the list, you can't tell us nothing. We still happy. We're content. 8 on the list, we won the lottery. 9 on the list, this is impossible. I'm winning. I don't got no complaints. I'm out. 10 on the list, that's impossible. That's never gonna happen. You know, I don't even know what to do with this. I'm gonna just disappear. Women, on the other hand, anything that's not 10 on the list, I'm settling. Right? Anything that's not 10. So it's very interesting what she was saying there, but I'm tying this to the money part into Lexus Exodus by saying women really messed them. This is the problem that we're running into in our society, even for the good actors, right? The problem is no one really knows how to, or they're too cowardly to address the fact that hypergamy is a real thing, and all you did with giving women high heels was make them look even further up for men. Right? They don't want to come off of still looking upward, particularly still looking upwards financially. So when you run into these 6-figure women, and Lexus Exodus is one of them, what ends up happening is that they're saying, hey, I make 120. I need a man that makes 150. Let's be honest, 250. Anything less than that, I'm settling. Well, once you pass 100, now it's a little bit more, but once you pass $100,000 a year, you're in the top 10%. Then you're a black woman on top of that? You think the white boys care about what you're talking about? Why? Because they're not harsh about it? Get out of here. I want to say this again. Aoki Simmons, Russell Simmons' daughter, attended Harvard, and she don't got no goddamn wedding ring from one of them white boys. What you think happened? Bowser attended Harvard. She now dating the. I'm not even gonna say it again. She's now at 34 years old, and I think she was been with Buddy since she was maybe 32, 33. Now she's in a serious relationship with a black man that might look like it might be marriage. Excuse me. She attended Harvard also. What you think happened? Black women, you're gonna keep on telling me and telling other men. Oh, it's because we're taught to take school more seriously, unlike white women who try to go get their MRS degree. I think that's true to a certain extent. That yes, I do think that's true to a certain extent. But y'all not gonna tell the truth and be like them white guys ain't checking in college either. Not for y'all, huh? Or you're lying to us because you need to lie to yourself. That even when you're in the spaces with the white men, especially the baller white men, especially the white men that are gonna be something in the future, the ones with the names and the status, the ones that come from the elite families, those white guys ain't checking, and at best you're just a booty call while y'all are attending the same university, huh? Huh. And Mr. Shook to you says, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Mr. Shook to you says, take away the vag and then judge them by their character. I agree. And it's gonna stink. It's going to stink to high hell. And y'all give Z 1 second, y'all talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. But yeah, I agree with you on that one, Mr. Shook, to you. Right? Huh. But is that what character? And that includes for the well spoken, educated women. Because all they do for many of them is hide behind their degree and their education. Once you take them out of that, they fall apart. They fall apart. Right? You take them out of what they studied, they fall apart. Right? So, you know, the product of the way that lighter skinned black woman, and I focus on her so much because when I used to speak to BGS about this years ago, I focused on her so much because to me, it's fascinating to watch her be the extreme example to being the example, right? It's fascinating watching the rest of the panel, not all of them, but some of the other louder voices in the room push back on her, the lighter skinned black woman in the 1970s, to Ebony K. Williams essentially regurgitating and Amanda Seals essentially regurgitating what that woman said back then in the 70s and reading comments and watching videos of black women who so overtly agree with the Ebony K. Williams and Amanda Seals of the world. We watched as Ebony K. Williams called black men mediocre, said who wants to be what no, she said your parents were willing to accept C's and D's, calling black men mediocre, and we watched black women celebrate her. Knowing that she's single, knowing she was the bust down for a white man and didn't work out, knowing that her eggs are on ice, knowing that she's paying for sperm to inseminate said eggs to have children, and she's spending tens of thousands of dollars to do it, and failing, by the way, knowing all of that, and not all the black women knew all of that, but many of them did, and they still think what the way Ebony K. Williams is going about it is better. So we went from that being an extreme in 1970 to that being something that is celebrated by many black women, if not most, in 2023 and 2024. Right? Huh. And Prime VA says, bruh, I grew up in a pretty affluent area around white people. Those dudes aren't dumb. They can have money and be cheap. Black women don't want to hear it though. And let's be very clear. For a lot of black women, the reason why they really want the white dude is for the status. They think white men, which is absolutely fascinating. They think your average white man is like green and naive and dumb to the game, and he's sex deprived and he's naive to the game. So she gonna throw that wet on him, give him the Gog 3000, and he's just gonna melt. And she could do whatever she want to do with him after that. And them white guys, because I've worked with both white collar and blue collar white men, from young, right out of high school, all the way up to 70. Actually, a little bit older than 70. Once again, both white and blue collar. Dear black women, they can smell you from a million miles away. The ones that don't find you attractive like that, they're not into black women. Man, it was crazy reading the clip um from the Dating Divide. Shout out to Shay Sade. She posted it on her channel. I also posted it, where it says white people see the advancement or the advances, in other words, the sexual and dating advances of people of color They just ignore them. Because I saw it. In other words, whether it's white men or white women, when men of color or women of color flirt with them and they're not, they pretend like they don't even see what you're doing. And I saw that's why Mr. Z could tell y'all what do I say? These white guys see the black girl flirt and then he act like a 12-year-old. He acts naive and whimsical because he don't want to hurt your feelings. He's not interested. Which further causes you to think he's green to the game and he just does oh yeah, I really want him now because he don't even realize what I'm doing. He does. That's the fascinating part about black women. Uh those white guys know. Shout out to Prom VA. We know they know. Right? We know they know. That's why it's fascinating to watch all of these clips and TikTok videos and YouTube videos of black women speaking about, or no, not even speaking about, yeah, speaking about their relationships with white men and all of these interracial couple, black women, whatever, and yet black women's actual interracial marriage rate is some 4 to 5%, right? And if you only focus on married black women, if you control for only married black women, it's some like 12%. But yet you could barely go anywhere on social media without seeing some type of black man, excuse me, black woman, white man dancing, um, how we met, black man, white man. Excuse me, I said black man, white man. Black woman, maybe, maybe. Anyway, black woman, white man relationships, how we met, black woman, Latino man relationships, how we met, um, black woman, Asian, even black woman, Asian man, which we know is like damn near infinitesimal. Um, Once again, how we met, um, here's our wedding day. So once again, astroturf propaganda, right? I can tie that right back to the 1970s again and say, how did we get to, and even with this, what I'm saying now, how is it that this is so commonplace all over social media and even in mainstream media? They're pushing this image of black women with white man, with Latino man, with Asian men, and yet this is not reflected in real life. You want to know why black women sound delusional? Because there is money to push them further and further, and women in general push them further and further in this delusion. Issa Rae over here talking about black women and Asian men, namely Korean men, and how Korean men are more likely to date black women. Meanwhile, I can't recall when they took the census that one year, and it was like 9,000 marriages between black women and Asian men. It's like, come on, this is not a thing. It's not a thing, right? But you can't say that to black women because it's an insult and you're putting them down. And no, this is reflected. I can even tie that to the PhD that I'm referring to from, was it Reconstructing a Relationship? I can't recall what the channel name is, and my apologies for that. I can even tie that to her. You're trying to get black women comfortable with being single and why do you want to get married? And she kept on stressing that. Instead of us asking people, why are you single? Ask the married people, why are you married? So it really is trying to like, it's really about not hurting women's feelings, black women specifically feelings, when you ask them, why are you single? But she was like, stop asking single people why are they single. Ask married people why are they married. Or if you're gonna do it to both. Oh boy. And we need to stop speaking about being single like it's something defective, like there's something wrong with it. Oh boy. Right? That's because it hurts y'all feelings, because it stings when someone asks you, why are you single? I thought y'all would just do what y'all always do because black men are horrible. Everything about black men is wrong. They're not educated enough. They're not on my level. They're, say the word Z slow. Abusive. Right? Huh. Ma'am, you could just do what black women have always done. Just blame it on black men. Blame it on Jermaine. It's always Jermaine's fault. When someone asks a black woman, especially a black woman of your caliber, why you're single, well, you did give your story of the one guy that you were engaged to before. Just keep on giving those type of stories. Black women have been doing it for decades. I'm single because black men are effed up. Okay, then go get you a white man then. Oops. Huh? I watched that damn interview with that lady, and I could tell that it was a little off, right? Like she's educated, well spoken, whatever, whatever. I could tell that it was a little off, but it's when at the last like 10 or so minutes, 15 or so minutes where you realize, oh no, she really is like, right, a bit much. Oh, by the way, that drives black women crazy. For all you younger brothers that don't know, and even some of you older brothers that don't know, um, that's something that's starting to drive them crazy more and more, and they're actually saying it. Stop telling them that they're too much, even when they are. This is when we start getting to being my authentic self and being my true self. Oh boy. And once again, Mr. Shook to you, thank you for the super chat and the great advice. Take away their vag, then judge them by their character. And Better You says, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Better You says, Lexus Exodus, y'all ain't gonna make me a black woman today. Y'all ain't gonna make me black today. She really does sound like Ayn Rand, like what you think. Well, I've heard Ayn Rand speak before, but what a modern day black woman interpretation of Ayn Rand would sound like, right? But for her to say what she said about what's his name, Brian Abasolo, 60 to 110, and she kind of looked down on that. I'm like, lady, you know the median household income in America, the median household income in America doesn't even break $75,000 a year. It's like 74 and some change. So even if this man was earning, let's say at the bottom 60, and he's not ambitious enough. Okay. A black woman turned Russian Miss Lexus Exodus Ayn Rand. Alrighty then. Man. And Anubis says, is it me or is it black women trying to become extinct like the women of South Korea? I think we have a number. I think the Western world finds itself in an interesting position because of what women deem as their quote unquote standards. I think a combination of expensive homes, the lifestyle that women want to live, their aspirationalism. I think a combination of that, even if they're not card carrying members of Let's Go Extinct, right? I think the outcome of, once again, expensive homes, a lifestyle that particularly professional managerial class women want to live, the standards that they have, quote unquote standards that they have, I think that culminates into a lowering birth rate and more women saying, for, I'll not only forego being married, I'll forego long term relationships and I'll forego children because this lifestyle matters more to me than anything. And for me to get married, not only does he have to be exceedingly, and this is where physical attraction matters, but it takes a back seat to exceedingly financially well endowed and able to provide a lifestyle for me and said children, right? So this leaves a shrinking pool of men, especially when you feminized many of the spaces that would produce these type of men, the universities, right? So I do think that there are women, and I'm saying yes, you're right. There are card-carrying members of the 4B movement painted black, right? No sex with men, black men. No relationships with men, black men. No having children with men, black men, right? I do think there are card carrying members of that. What I'm saying is, I think those people are a loud minority. I think for many other black women, especially of a certain education and type, I think the real issue is a lack of a lifestyle and a type of man that they're looking for. And the lady off of the interview, the PhD that I'm referencing, she speaks to that. She actually says something along those lines, right? She actually says something along those lines. And y'all give Z 1 second. Y'all speak amongst yourselves. Reckless streams, reckless streams, right? And we're back. But yeah, no, I truly believe that these people just want to live a lifestyle. They want a certain standard of living, and if they can have a man pay for it for them, then to hell with it all, right? And so that thought process may be deliberately a and intentionally a 4B movement esque outcome, or you just might get to the outcome because you said, you know what, I don't want to have children and I don't want to get married, and if I can't have this lifestyle, right? And I think a lot of it is that, So hey, hope maybe it works for black women. Probably not, right? Y'all give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm in a good space. And here we go. Yeah, yeah. Most likely it doesn't work for black women. Most likely not. Because it's not working. It's not working out. And Lion says, and thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Lion says, about hypergamy. It doesn't matter if she's not what the men want. Most women's looks alone keep them from fully optimizing hypergamy to the fullest. True. True. I think the resentment and the anger at not being able to pull and keep, right? Because, like, let's be very clear. Like, attractive men of means still will have sex with a 5, right? The problem is oftentimes for these women that these men don't stay. They don't stay, right? So the resentment that builds from that makes that woman even more insufferable. If she wasn't insufferable, it makes her insufferable. If she was already insufferable, it only makes her more insufferable because she resents that. This is where Bowser comes in. They resent that, right? Oh, Stefco told you pretty girl privilege, and she went over all of these things that she would consider as either microaggressions or some type of infraction from men writ large, black men specifically, and it rips women apart to see other women be pined over in a way that it doesn't rip men apart. Do we know who the attractive brother is? Yeah, the charismatic one, yes. Yes, men are part of this world too. We know who those people are. But as you can see from women, all in their 30s and 40s and 50s, recounting stories of high school and college and how it felt, and it's so visceral for them. How it felt to be, and as Ostefko said, to dress up for her birthday, to go to this bar, and nary one eye turned her way, and for her light-skinned homegirl, her light-skinned girlfriend, to walk in and men are breaking their necks and it ripped her apart. Like, Ostefko might be a little gone emotionally, but she represents far more women of color, and then black women specifically, that I think our society would ever want to give her credit for. She represents so many women, black women in specific, that this is a thing for. So yeah, what you're saying, line, absolutely. Women's looks alone keep them from fully optimizing their hypergamous nature, and they resent men for that. And in this case, black women resent black men for that. That's why they keep on bringing up these mythical, magical white men who pay for their white girlfriend and white wives' entire life, subsidize their entire life. She doesn't have to lift one finger. That's where they come up with these weirdo stories from. It's a part of their imagination because in their mind, and that's why they come up with ideas like if he would, if he could, oh, no, if he wanted to, he would, or whatever, however that term goes. Because what they're saying is, you don't find me attractive enough. That's the problem. That's why you haven't built me Wakanda. You haven't built me Wakanda. Black women haven't, excuse me, black men haven't built black women Wakanda. Black men refuse to do all of these things for black women. Great pillage, destroy the world, right? Black men haven't done that for black women because we don't think they're, oh boy, Z, you about to say them words again. Black women aren't deserving enough or worthy enough. And black men don't think that black women are deserving enough or worthy enough because black men don't find black women attractive enough. All of that ties in, right? Huh. Vince, but this is facts, and you're letting facts get in the way of their feelings. And Vince is, we haven't built Wakanda because we fresh out of Jim Crow. And there's something to say about this Wakanda thing. You can argue black men have built Wakanda. It's called America. Um, but even if we take what you're saying at face value, you're right, by the way. The problem is they ain't trying to hear it. And then the problem for them is, well, then deal with the consequences of giving black men the middle finger because you feel like black men should have built black women Wakanda some 60 years out of Jim Crow on paper. Right? And once again, Lion, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. And you're right. And you're right. Right. And a split Jim, thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. And a split Jim says, "Good morning, Z. Black women also want to use white men to validate themselves to white women. Absolutely, absolutely. This is a woman of color thing, but obviously, specifically a black woman thing. It's to look at what I can do to women of their communities, um, women of their ethnicities, women of their friend circle, their family. It's look at what I can do. Number one. Number two, as you said, it's to validate themselves to white women. Look, I could pull your man, right? That's why you got women on the black women on the daily wrap up crew. We could get, was it daily wrap up crew or was it crew season? I could get a white man and I could get a Latino man and I could get an Asian man, and she's speaking like she's pulling these men off of a goddamn shelf. You just walk into the interracial dating store, you'd be like, "Ooh, that one, that's the one I want. I'll just go ring up now." Like these men are living, breathing human beings with their own tastes and preferences, and it may not be you. No, you find him attractive, so that's what it is. And you go into the man store, and then you go to the interracial section, and you just say, "Yeah, that one, that's the one." Right? And Anubis is talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood and whatnot. And Anubis says, actually, black men have built Wakanda, and white men burnt it down or flooded it. Right? So yeah, split gym, like you said, it 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 is to validate themselves to white women too. Especially, you imagine, like, once again, Aoki Simmons, O Stefko, Candace Owens. They grow up in these white environments. The pretty white girl is once again the pretty white girl, so she's head cheerleader and et cetera, et cetera. And when these black women end up with these white men, it is to flex on white women, especially, God forbid, she end up with a well-off white dude. Oh, you can't tell her nothing. She flexing on everybody. She's definitely flexing on your black ass black men. Oh, definitely. I didn't have to be stuck in Blackistan with you, Negro, and Negro is not the word she's using. Right? But she also is using it to flex on white women. Look, I pulled one of yours and I pulled a good one. Okay. And she uses it to stunt on other black women. Heh, you're stuck in Blackistan with those Negroes. Once again, Negro is not the word. And look at what I got. Conspicuous consumption in the dating scene, in the marriage scene, in relationships. Well, right. And once again, a split gem. Thank you for the super chat. And Vince's translation: I'll sacrifice my potential for your happiness for a lifestyle that I ain't building or contributing monetarily to. Disney did their thing. Shaking my head. No, Disney did. Disney absolutely did. Disney actually affected the men also. It did. But what between Disney and the education system, see, between, as BGS would tell us, the Prussian education system and feminism and Disney, you want to know why women sound so goddamn schizophrenic? On one hand, they have the Prince Charming, come and save you from all your struggles in life narrative going on in their mind, right? He comes and he pays for everything and he saves you from the struggle. So they have that played on in their mind. Then on the other end, they have um I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, Rosie the Riveter, um strong independent woman, right? going on in their mind because all of this is being pushed. They have the captain of industry, queen of industry, never satisfied, upwardly mobile power couple thing going on in their mind, while also having the damsel in distress thing going on in their mind. Because all of these things are being pushed. That's why you let them talk. These things clash with each other. They sound schizophrenic as hell. They sound like they don't know what they're talking about because they don't. Right? You see what I'm saying? In Vince's, they want Prince Charming and Genghis Khan at the same time. Hysterical. And Genghis Khan had how many wives and side pieces and whatever the hell? Right? This is a warlord tearing up Asia, going all through Asia, all up into Europe. Him and his descendants. But he's also supposed to be Prince Charming. Yawn. Right? Absolutely insanity. And many of the seeds of this type of insanity were planted, once again, time back to the title, were planted by that lady in the 1970s. These people sound schizophrenic. These women sound absolutely delusional, insane. Better use says 1% of Earth population is his direct descendants. Speaking about Genghis Khan, right? Man. And Vince, thank you for the super chat. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. So, you know, yeah, I'm gonna have to do, like I said, a review of the stream with the conversation with the PhD. Um, thank you for the information, Trell. Trell got me caught up on that, so I'm gonna read and see what's going on with this lady from the 1970s. It is frightening and fascinating as a social experiment to see how that lady from that clip. If you don't know what I'm referencing, by the way, links are in the description box once again. How that light skinned lady went from being the extreme, even in a matriarchal community, the black community was still matriarchal. She went from being the extreme, the one gynocrat amongst matriarchs, to her extreme being the example. So she went from being the extreme example to being the example, right? Man. Detroit says that's like comparing Peter Parker but mixing Magneto at the same time. Man. Vince says, when I was younger, I thought it was just me that had women problems. Only if I knew what was ahead of me. Look, bro, that's gonna happen. Period. The issue isn't women problems. I would argue the issue isn't necessarily women problems. It's a society that codifies women's delusions, and it it shelters women from the consequences, allowing for women not to change and evolve because they get hit with all of the weight of their consequences. Women problems was going to happen to you as a heterosexual man who's attracted to heterosexual women. That was going to happen anyway, regardless of what system we were under. But when you have a society that raises the boys to cater to the feelings of the women, regardless, right? To placate the women, to kiss the women's ass, that anything you do outside of that is sexist and misogynistic. when you have a society that raises the boys, that anything you do outside of placating, outside of bowing and scraping, outside of sacrificing yourself for the advancement of women, anything you do outside of that is sexist and misogynistic. That's where the issues start to come in. Anything you do that says anything like even exchange, particularly in intimate relationships, anything that says, okay, you want my resources, what do I get for that that I want? Once again, not trying to change and manipulate what the men want, but saying, what, you want my resources, right? Or at least if I can't give you all of them, you still want me to subsidize you to a certain extent. What do I get that I actually want? And that's when we start to get into some real issues, right? So the women problems thing, that was always going to be a thing, regardless of what system we lived under. You could be under a hard ass patriarchy, you would still have that issue. It's when we start to think about the societal mechanisms that allow for said women, right? And Vince's even Soldier Boy voice, Drake, even Eartha Kitt, compromise. Compromise for what? For who? With who? For real. Vince's, can we just start to, not coddle their feelings and fantastical ideas? I don't know. The much of the U.S. economy is built off of that, though. What's going on, GC? Much of the U.S. economy, once again, y'all hear Mr. Z recite that all the time. What does not Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, that memo, and that memo was out since what, 2018, 2019, something like that, maybe even 2017, but I think it was like 2018 or 2019. Between 2018 and 2030, 40 some odd percent, it was 45 or something like that, 40 some odd percent of women are going to be single, and I think it said childless also. And you know Morgan Stanley was salivating over that because they see nothing but profit in that. Nothing but profit. But profit. Thank you, Vince, for saying it this way. Romance is decayed. It's not destroyed, but it's definitely decayed. It's not gone. Not yet, anyway. But I agree with this. It's definitely decayed. But romance defined how? This is where we start getting into some very interesting territory about what does romance look like depending on the era, right? That's when we get into that. So, on that note, everyone, we will pause right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Um, I'm so glad that I said compassionate. Sorry, compassionate. That accountable commentary found that clip. Thank you so much because he found that clip, and I still couldn't find it after I researched it off of the title he put up. But I changed a couple of words around, and I found it. And I found the very one I was referencing that BGS put up 7 years ago. Shout out to BGS and more. Um, and like I said, I'm about to save it in a minute. Um, y'all check out the links in the description. Very important. It shows you the difference between 19 black women speaking about the Moynihan report and speaking about relationship to black men in the 1970s. And if I'm not mistaken, it might actually be 1970, but somewhere in the early 70s. You compare that to 50 plus years later. Damn, there we're almost at 55 years later. And you see the difference between a matriarchy with one gynocrat, or at least one damn near confirmed gynocrat. You see that, and now you see what a community full of gynocrats look like. and you could compare and contrast, right? I know accountable commentary went a different direction with his obviously commentary, but for me, it was looking at how, especially that light skinned black woman, how she sounded compared to the rest of them. Even if we don't appreciate the framing, even if a couple of them did go off the reservation here and there, depending on what they were saying, you look at that lighter skinned black woman and how she spoke about black men compared to the rest of the panel, and you compare that to how black women speak about black men now, not just online and on the internet, but in real life. And you realize how much of that lighter skinned black woman, what was her name again? Joan? Is that what Trell told me her name was? Right? You look at the way she speaks now, the way black women speak now, and they speak a lot like that lady. What was her name? Let me see. I think Trell said her name was Joan. Let me see. I'm looking for Trell's comments. Oh, it's too far up. I'm not going to be able to find it. But yeah, that part. So, yeah, everyone. On that note, we will pause right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. For the love of God, this was a great, great, great clip to find. Shout out to Accountable Commentary. Shout out to BGS for his coverage of it, or at least posting it 7 years ago, right? And I've made reference to it often. Finally found it. I've been looking for this at least for a good 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it's been that long. Um, yeah. So y'all check out the links in the description box. And on that note, everyone, once again, y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content. I think Dr. Thunder might still be streaming. The Roger Report should be coming on in a little bit, in about 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. I might be coming to you guys a little bit later with some stuff. All right, everyone. Y'all have a great rest of y'all day. Mr. Z out.